Before I share this story with you, let me ask a question. Have you ever been judged by your appearance, dismissed, disrespected, or made to feel small, only for the truth about your worth to later come to light? If you have, then you already understand the heart of what you're about to hear. This is not just a tale about money or power. It's about kindness, courage, and the quiet strength of character that still matters more than wealth. And before we dive in, I'd like to invite you, please subscribe, share, and leave a comment when something touches your heart in this story. Ask yourself along the way, what would I have done if I were in this situation? Because stories like this one aren't just entertainment. They are mirrors of our lives. Now let's begin. Harold Whitmore was 68 years old. His hair had thinned to silver, and his once straight back carried the slight bend of age. But his mind? Still sharp. His heart? Still strong. Harold was the quiet owner of a popular restaurant that bore his name on the sign outside, Whitmore's Kitchen. For decades, Harold had poured his sweat and soul into the place. It wasn't just a business to him. It was his legacy, a place built on the values of honesty, kindness, and respect. Customers weren't just customers, they were family. Staff weren't just employees, they were partners in creating something lasting. But time had shifted. Harold had stepped back from daily management, entrusting operations to a younger man named Victor Kane, the general manager. Victor was ambitious, slick, and persuasive when Harold first hired him. But rumors had begun to reach Harold's ears, rumors of cheating, arrogance, and cruelty toward both customers and staff. One afternoon, Harold sat in his modest home and listened to yet another friend tell him about their terrible experience at the restaurant. The food was fine, his friend said, but the manager? He was cold, dismissive. I felt like I was being robbed, Harold. That's not the place I remember. That night Harold couldn't sleep. His heart ached. He had spent his life building Whitmore's Kitchen on the foundation of love and integrity. Was it really being torn down by greed? The next morning, Harold made a decision. He would go to the restaurant himself. Not as the owner, but as an ordinary old man. Dressed in his oldest coat, with worn shoes and a cap pulled low, he would walk through those doors and see for himself how the world inside his restaurant truly worked. The city street buzzed with life that evening when Harold arrived. Cars honked, neon lights flickered, and laughter spilled from bars and cafes. But when he stood before his own restaurant, he hardly recognized it. The warm golden glow of community he once knew seemed colder now, slicker, as if dressed up more for profit than for people. Inside, Harold found himself waiting at the host's stand. Patrons filled the tables, some smiling, others whispering complaints. The decor was still elegant, but something invisible had changed. The air no longer felt welcoming. And then came Victor. Victor Kane was in his mid-30s, tall and sharp-featured, with a trimmed beard and expensive suit. His watch gleamed as he checked it impatiently. When his eyes fell on Harold, dressed like nothing more than a poor passerby, his mouth twisted with disdain. "Can I help you?" Victor asked, his tone already dripping with annoyance. Harold cleared his throat gently. "Just one person. A table, please." Victor's smirk deepened. "Sir, perhaps you're lost. This is not the place for casual wanderers. We have a dress code and our prices are not exactly," he eyed Harold's coat with thinly veiled contempt, "affordable for everyone." A hush fell over nearby guests. Some frowned at Victor's cruelty. Others looked away awkwardly, unwilling to interfere. Harold spoke softly. "I only ask for a meal. A simple meal." Victor leaned closer, his voice cold and sharp. "Then perhaps you should find a simpler place. There's a diner 2 streets over. Cheap coffee, cheap food. That should suit you." For a moment, Harold simply looked at Victor. He could feel the sting of humiliation burning his chest. But he did not reply. Instead, he allowed Victor's arrogance to unfold further. Victor straightened, now speaking loudly enough for the entire lobby to hear. "We run a high-class establishment here. If you can't meet our standard, then kindly step aside so real paying customers can be served." Gasps echoed around the room. A young couple at the corner shook their heads. An older woman whispered, "That poor man." But Victor ignored them all. He jabbed his finger toward the door. "Pay for the cheap room somewhere else. Leave. Now." Harold remained still. His weathered hands gripped the cap in front of him. His voice, when it finally came, was steady. "You look at me and see nothing but an old man in worn clothes," Harold said softly, but with a weight that carried across the room. "But these hands," he raised them slowly, fingers cracked and trembling, "built more than you'll ever know. They built this city's kitchens. They fed children. They worked day and night so others could sit at tables like these." The restaurant grew silent. Even the clinking of cutlery stopped. "You mock me now," Harold continued, his eyes never leaving Victor's. "But men like me, people who came before you, we are the reason this restaurant even stands." Victor scoffed. "Enough of this nonsense. Get out before I call security." From the back of the dining room, a man stepped forward. His presence was commanding, his suit pressed sharp, his expression unreadable. This was Daniel Carter, the regional director of the restaurant chain. He had been visiting quietly, observing operations, and now every eye turned toward him. "Mr. Whitmore," Daniel said, addressing Harold by name, "you will not be leaving." The room erupted in murmurs. Heads turned. Victor's face drained of color. "What?" Victor stammered. Daniel's gaze was ice. "You will not be throwing him out. In fact, Mr. Whitmore will be staying in the finest seat in this house, free of charge. And we will serve him as he deserves, with dignity." Gasps swept the room. The staff froze in disbelief. Guests whispered, realizing the truth. The frail old man they had seen humiliated was the very owner of the place. Victor's jaw fell open. He tried to speak, but no words came. "Victor," Daniel said sharply, "see me in my office. Now." Victor stiffened, his arrogance shattered. Under the weight of dozens of stares, he followed Daniel out, his shoulders rigid but his pride in ruins. That evening, Harold sat at a table near the window, the finest meal in front of him. But it wasn't the food that moved him. It was the quiet murmurs from tables around the room. "Did you hear what he said?" a young woman whispered. "Those words, they made me think of my grandfather," another replied. Harold looked down at his plate. Tears blurred his vision. He had not come for a free meal. He had come for the truth. And though the night had stung his heart, he also saw hope. For even in the arrogance of one man, there had been dozens more who understood, who listened, who remembered the importance of respect, of kindness, of honoring those who came before. Harold gathered the staff together. He looked each one in the eyes and spoke firmly but gently. "This restaurant will not be a place of greed," he said. "It will not be a place where people are mocked or dismissed. It will be a place where every guest, no matter how they appear, is treated with dignity. That is what Whitmore's kitchen was built for. And that is what it will remain." Some staff hung their heads in shame. Others nodded with tears in their eyes. And slowly, Harold felt something shift back into place, the heart of his restaurant, beating once again. As Harold walked home that night, the city lights reflecting off the pavement, he thought of what had happened. He had been mocked, humiliated, and nearly thrown out of his own creation. But in the end, his words, and the truth, had stood taller than arrogance. And maybe that's the lesson for all of us. Dignity is not found in riches. Respect is not earned by mocking the weak. True courage is shown when we choose kindness, even when the world tells us to look away. So let me ask you, what would you have done if you were there that night? Would you have stayed silent, or would you have spoken up for Harold? I want to hear from you. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story touched you, if it reminded you that kindness still matters, please subscribe, share this with someone you love, and watch until the very end. Because the world needs more voices like Harold's, and maybe yours is one of them.